Episode 10 of Glass of Joe is a go. I'm PJ Glasser, joined by Joe Malfa.
Double
Joe?
digits.
Double digits.
We made it.
We did. Goes by, pretty quick, I got to say.
Oh,
now
yeah.
we got sports. We've had baseball back now for 4 or 5 days. We got NBA, NHL coming up here in the next couple of days. But, Joe, we were just all so excited to have baseball back. It was looking great. They did their last round of COVID testing. I think like 7 players in the entirety of Major League Baseball had tested positive. And then those damn those Miami Marlins now.
Just doesn't matter what we call them.
Sucked all the energy out of everybody. And I think now it's up to 18 guys as we record this on Wednesday that have tested positive, totally shaking up the schedule for a bunch of teams. The Orioles were supposed to play the Marlins. Now they're playing the Yankees today and tomorrow. The Phillies, who were supposed to play the Yankees, now are off until the weekend. The Nationals, who were supposed to get the Marlins in the weekend series, they're not traveling to Miami anymore. So we got a whole lot of stuff going on. But, Joe, what I wanted to get into you with, and I know we have the same feeling, is the fact that the Marlins knew that they had players that had tested positive.
I'm about to go on a rant. Like I don't even know how to react to this honestly anymore.
Who do you think should take sole blame for it? Is it Jeter and the ownership group? Is it the players themselves? Is it Don Mattingly?
I don't think there is sole blame. I think it's collectively a bunch of idiots. I'm trying to clean it up and not like go too bad into this. I don't know how dumb a group of people could possibly be. It's one thing if teams don't properly follow masks or anything like that, and you're playing with danger, but you hope for the best. Wrong, but you know what? Unfortunately, people are going to have lapses in this. But to know that multiple guys tested positive and have a players meeting to determine what the health people should be determining and still go out there and play a game, that is in a different atmosphere of stupidity and selfishness and just, I don't even know.
There really are no words.
Adjectives to describe it.
It's speechless.
That has got to be one of, in the words of Bill Walton when he does his Pac-12 After Dark, that's got to be one of the 10 dumbest things in the history of humanity. That honestly has to be one of the 10 dumbest things in the history of humanity. How could you have a players meeting to decide that you're going to continue playing when you have all these positive tests? Blows my mind.
Still, the most incredible thing, too, is that everybody else, after Soto and the Marlins, there have been no other positive tests. So I think that's what kind of is some positivity through all of this, why games are still probably being played. But, I'm with you. For the Marlins to know, when COVID started and commissioners started to put a return of play motion into action, you would hope that one thing that was kind of an unwritten rule was accountability of players and coaches and teams.
And not even that, just a pure thing. It should have been line 1A. If you have positive tests, you don't play a game.
Because by playing that game, the Marlins hurt themselves more than anybody.
Yes.
They can't field a team now for at least a week and a half, 2 weeks.
Now, one thing I did notice was that when Rob Manfred was asked, like, what would prompt them stopping baseball, and he was like, if there enough players were out that it rendered the competition unfair. The Marlins have a dozen players that have tested positive and are going to be out. I just love that we're all just kind of glossing over the fact that Rob Manfred essentially said, yeah, the Marlins were a bunch of spare parts anyway, and this doesn't really affect the integrity of the competition.
It's so true. I know.
If this was the Yankees and it was Stanton, Torres, Judge, and Aaron Boone, among others, they would have shut down immediately. But I couldn't even name half the Marlins who have tested positive. I don't think they made the names public anyway, but even if they did, I wouldn't know who half of them even are.
I'm with you. And I think baseball not being in a bubble, still wanting to make this as normal as possible with teams playing in their own stadiums and traveling to different ballparks. This was big to see how an outbreak can occur throughout a dugout, through a clubhouse. But as of now, we have not heard any Phillies that have tested positive, which is good because I think that a bunch of people wanted to see a team that has COVID playing against another team. How would that look? Obviously, baseball, and when you look at football, much different from a contact standpoint and social distance. But so far, no Phillies have tested positive, thankfully. But Marlins, I mean, come on.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very good sign that the Phillies haven't. Of course. It's a very good sign that the Phillies haven't tested positive. Again, if you think about it, baseball, you shouldn't play a game with one team having positive tests against the other, period. But of all the sports that could possibly have that dumb, completely idiotic decision made by the Marlins, baseball's the one that could tolerate it because aside from batter at the plate near the catcher and runner at first near a first baseman, you're never really coming together. Because, all right, runner on second base, nobody's really holding him to the bag usually. Same thing at third, nobody's usually holding him to the bag. Sure, you could have somebody slide into a base and, there's some sort of contact there. But aside from runner at first, batter at the plate, not a ton of contact. I haven't watched the Marlins games yet against the Phillies. Perhaps, catchers, I know some catchers some first basemen have been wearing masks. So even that takes out those couple of danger areas. I know I saw Anthony Rizzo wear a mask.
He was handing out hand sanitizer.
He was handing out hand sanitizers. Like I've seen first basemen and catchers. I saw Pablo Sandoval wearing a mask at first. First basemen and catchers have been taking that extra step. Again, those are the two places where you have that constant contact, close proximity. So of all the sports where someone could have made a boneheaded decision like that, baseball is the one where thankfully the Phillies are okay and have gone through multiple rounds of negative tests. But I just still can't believe how dumb the Marlins. I mean, and I'm down here in the Miami area now for work, and just the radio, TV, around the office, Marlins fans, everybody's saying the same thing. Like, there's no way around this. That was the dumbest decision that could have possibly been made.
It absolutely was. And I was getting ready to talk to you about the expanded playoffs as I'm looking, towards the show for this week and things we're going to talk about. And then the Marlins happened.
Yeah.
But the expanded playoff, our biggest question, and Tim Kirch in our first interview, one of the questions we asked him is if they play a season, will there be an asterisk over it? And he said, we have to treat the champion of this season like a true champion, which I agree with. But
and he said the number of games was right around the 60 mark.
Yes.
Anything less than that would be not fair, but that was like the gray area. So he considered 60 to be an appropriate number.
And what makes the playoffs so great, especially in baseball, is how hard it is to reach the postseason. You have 30 teams in baseball, only 10 of them make it to the playoffs, and 4 of those teams, 2 in the AL and 2 in the NL, play a one-game wild card to see who moves on. So it's really only like 6 teams that are locked into knowing that they will play multiple games in the postseason. Now you're putting more than half the league in with 16 games. And I get, it's money. I think a big part of it, too, is the fact that they're giving a little cushion for teams that if players like Juan Soto are out for 7 to 10 games, and that's a big part of their team, they're giving a little cushion, a little room for those teams to maybe drop a few games, and then they have a chance to sneak into the playoffs. But man, right off the bat, I mean, some of these favorites to win the World Series, the Dodgers, the Yankees, and the Astros could be playing these 3-game series and could be feeling the pressure right away.
So I'm cool with expansion. I've been wanting expansion to 16 teams for a while. Question is, is 16 too much? Because now it's more than half the league, but it's no different than what the NHL and NBA do, where 16 make it, 14 don't. In those leagues, the 8 seeds really don't count. They get eliminated all the time without any issues. Baseball's a different story, though. A lot trickier of a game. So with that being said, by allowing these extra teams in, if they were to expand at some point in the future, I've always been in favor of going to 16. The one thing that I always maintained is that first series still has to be at least 5 games, as would the DS series. Because in a 5-game series, the better team still usually wins, and you're not back against the wall right away. 3-game series it's so unfair, and you're just begging for people to poke holes in the legitimacy of this postseason. Because say my Mets sneak in as the 8 seed. First of all, we don't even know that they would play the 1 seed, because the whole other gimmick of having a playoff draft of picking your opponent, which is also inherently stupid. But you've got, they say the 1 seed wants to abide by seeding, and they pick the Mets, all right? And it's 1-8. Braves, Mets, okay? DeGrom's on the hill in game 1. Odds are you're going to lose that game, or at least be in trouble in that game. So if you lose that game, you're down 1-0. In a 5-game series, that's not a problem. You have time. In a 3-game series, you have to win 2 games in a row or you're gone. I mean, that's not fair. I know it's a shorter season, 60 games. The reason that in a 162-game season, it's a limited playoffs is because people want the regular season to mean more. Otherwise, it's a big, long slog that doesn't mean much in the end. So I get what they're trying to do. But, again, it's just too gimmicky. I would have been fine with if you wanted to do 8 teams in each, but it's a 5-game series. If you wanted to take a page out of the NFL's book, what they're doing now with their expansion, do 7 teams. 1 seeds still get the bye. 2 versus 7 in a 5-game set. 3 versus 6 in a 5-game set. 4 versus 5 in a 5-game set. And now you've got your last 4. There's your DS series. Another sequence of 5-game series. LCS, World Series, 7-game series. So you still honor the 1 seeds by getting buys. And then the rest of then it's a couple of 5-game sets in each. So that gets you to 14 teams. So if you, for the purists who don't want more than 50% of the league in the playoffs, you're still just below with 14 in, 16 out. I think an NFL type playoff solution would have worked. Again, no problem with 16, but the whole pick your opponent and it being a 3-game series is just begging for people to not take it seriously.
Right. And to go to your point about NBA and NHL and how they put half the teams in, my thing, especially with baseball, is just they play so many regular season games. I mean, 162.
Yeah.
At 162 games, you know what teams are looking like.
Exactly.
That's why I like that they only put a third of the league in, because you get the best of the best. But again, with 60 games, they're trying to give teams as much chance as possible.
Even if you wanted to do like the old NFL style and put 12 teams in, 6 in each, and give the first 2 buys, it still gives you more of a chance, more representation. But just 16, again, still can make an argument for, but for a 3-game set, it's not as stupid. It's not as stupid as the Marlins playing with the positive tests, but it is a couple tiers below on the stupidity ladder that it's top seeds are completely at risk and pick your opponent. I mean, that's just begging for, see right here, this little bulletin board.
People material, to make a mockery of
it. Put a pin in it. Exactly.
Yeah. Last quick baseball thought, Joe, before we get into our amazing guest this week, Mike Greenberg. The Astros played the Dodgers this week, and Joe Kelly was not shy when he took the mound.
No, he wasn't.
He faced Bregman, and he faced Correa, man. And we knew when these 2 teams were going to meet, there would probably be something. Did you expect it, though, to happen this quickly and with that much dramatic? Did you just expect a pitcher to hit the batter and that would be it? Maybe we'd see the benches clear, but I mean, did you see all the extra stuff with Joe Kelly, calling him curse words and stuff and giving him faces and all that stuff?
That was great TV last night. Coming into the shortened season now, different if it would have been a whole normal season, but coming into the shortened season, I didn't think that teams were going to forget about it. That's for damn sure. But I thought we would see teams in their division wait until the last time they play to do something, so there's less of an opportunity of retaliation. For example, the Mariners just played a 4-game set. They didn't do anything out of the ordinary, nefarious, throwing at players. They have 6 more. I think in game 9 or 10, the Mariners might throw at the Astros as a, hey, we didn't forget about this. Screw you guys. And now there's really no chance for the Astros to retaliate. They'll probably have a long memory and retaliate at the beginning of next year. Yeah. But that's next year's problem. So the tricky thing was going to be interleague play because they don't play as many times.
Yeah.
And with the way the matchups went, the Dodgers-Astros was the only one where the Astros would be playing someone that was directly impacted. So I had Dodgers-Astros circled on my calendar, and it did not disappoint. I'm a little surprised that Joe Kelly took it to the next level of like taunting as he went to the dugout.
Me too.
Because that just made it more obvious. I thought he was going to leave it at throwing him. I was also surprised that he threw at 2 batters in 1 inning. I thought he would leave it at 1 and that was it. But he looked for Bregman's head and he looked for Correa's head. And then when he went to the dugout, again, just a taunting. People were questioning why Kelly even did it because he wasn't on that Dodgers team back then. But it made sense because he's trying to further endear himself to his teammates. But he wasn't totally unaffected by it because in 2017, he was on the Red Sox team that was beaten by the Astros before the World Series. So he was impacted by the Astros. Wasn't with the Dodgers. So a lot of people on Twitter last night were confused, like, why is Joe Kelly doing this? But he was still impacted by the Astros in that season and now just further endearing himself to his teammates. But incredible theater on TV last night that was. And you're going to see a lot more of it as season goes along. I think people were naive to believe that teams would forget about it because it's look at the circumstances, right. 60 games. No, they're still going to do it, and we saw that, and we're going to see it a lot more as the season goes along.
Have you seen the video of Oral Hershiser from last night's game talking about when he was on the mound, how he would retaliate when guys got onto the base pass when they were on first base, and he would throw like low seeds over to first base and sometimes hope to maybe hit guys in the ribs or whatever. And Joe Davis was like, really? And Oral was like, I'm not condoning anything. I'm just saying that's some things I would do. And then they show Joe Kelly throwing over to first like a low rocket or whatever as Bregman's over at first. It was pretty interesting. So
I did not see that. No,
there's definitely ways.
Look, I don't condone it. Because I don't like the idea of using a baseball as a weapon. But I'm not gonna.
If anybody deserves it, it's
say If there were ever a time where it was deserved, it was Chase Utley when Syndergaard threw behind him after he broke the leg back in the LCS of 2015 of Ruben Tejada, and it was the Astros now. So I'm not gonna condone it because it's dangerous, and I wish that pitchers would aim for, the butt cheek, the rib cage, the arm, but not the head. The head's scary. So I hope that pitchers don't go head hunting anymore like Kelly did last night. I saw a tweet that I liked last night. It said, coming this next fall, pandemic head hunting on National Geographic with Joe Kelly. Because that's what he was doing last night.
I mean, he throws 100 too. So 100 around the dome. I mean, that's
scary.
That's scary stuff. What's not scary stuff is Mike Greenberg, who we got coming up. Awesome conversation. We hope you enjoy it. The great Mike Greenberg talking COVID, talking Jamal Adams trade, and a whole bunch.
For this week's guest, Mike Greenberg of ESPN. Greeny, thanks for taking some time out of your busy schedule. Before we dive in, most importantly, you and the family safe and healthy during these times?
We are. Thank you for asking. We're all doing well. My daughter had to come home from college, and it has been just as it has been for everyone, just a crazy time. But there have been some very nice moments in it as well. Having my kids home, which was something that I wasn't anticipating, and most importantly, we're all healthy. So thank you very much for asking, and I hope the same for you.
Yeah, all good on this end, and that's what's most important. All we could ask for right now, and now switching gears to all the sports topics at hand. You and I share one thing in common, and that is that we are both very disgruntled Jets fans. It's been a heck of a roller coaster ride with this Jamal Adams saga, and finally it has settled. What were your thoughts when you saw the trade was announced and the compensation the Jets got?
Well, so I think that there is both a little picture and a big picture way of looking at this. The little picture is that the Jets did extremely well. This was a test for the general manager, Joe Douglas, and how to handle the circumstance. And he's still so new to the Jets that, fans have not really had the opportunity to get much of a read on him. So this was the first super high profile thing that he's really done. And I don't think you could have possibly asked for it to go better. You have a player who was demanding to get out of town, who the whole league, I think, perceived to be someone that you needed to give away. And I think most of us were frustrated last Friday and Saturday morning because we thought that the Jets would get pennies on the dollar for him if they did trade him. The fact that he got what I think can only be described as outstanding compensation is a huge win. So in the small picture, I think that that's great news. The big picture is you don't win championships by trading away great players.
Of course.
And when the Jets drafted Jamal Adams, I've become very close to 3 LSU guys based on my show and work. Booger McFarland, Marcus Spears, and Ryan Clark. And all of them told me, Greeny, this is a guy who becomes the cornerstone of your franchise. This is a emotional, spiritual leader of your team. It's not just what he brings on the field, and he's obviously a great player. It's what he brings in the locker room. It's what he brings every day on the practice field. It's a guy who eats and sleeps and breathes and lives football, who actually, as it turned out, somewhat controversially said that he would die on the football field. And while that's not the way you want someone to put it, it is sort of the mentality you want from your players. So I don't think that you win championships by trading guys like that away. And further, it just continues what is a horrendous streak of getting nothing out of first-round picks. I mean, the Jets over a 5-year stretch had 6 first-round picks, and not one from 2013 through 17. Not one of them signed a second contract with the team. They wound up trading 5 of them and cutting the other before the end of their contract. So that's the express train to stinking, and that's why the Jets have stunk, and that's why they haven't been in the playoffs in a decade, and it is frustrating to watch. So I think the little picture response to the Jamal Adams trade is a very favorable one. I think the big picture is just continued frustration and dismay.
And big picture hopefully changes if Joe Douglas hits on the picks, but all those picks are his hope. And you mentioned all those whiffs in the first round during that span. Might not have mattered all that much anyway, because Tom Brady was still king in the AFC East. But I'm sure you were as happy as I was to see him finally leave the division. How do you think he's going to fare in Tampa? And do you think New England will be able to just kind of keep the machine going with the insertion of Cam Newton or Jarrett Stidham into that offense?
Well, the answer to your second question is starting to feel like no, and the reason is
with the opt-outs.
With all of these guys opting out. If you had asked me that question a week ago, I might have answered it differently. But it is impossible not to notice how many Patriots are opting out. And I don't know what, if anything, to read into that. But, important players, as we are having this conversation, you and I just saw the news that Patrick Chung is one of them. And we had the news earlier that Donta Hightower, is one of them. And multiple important members of the Patriots team. So I think that makes a difference. One of the things that I think we've learned from the Patriots is that it is not the way to be a great team is not to have 5 great players. It's to have 2 great players and 30 good ones. So I don't think you can lose all these good players and not have it affect you. So that's that thought. The previous thought, as far as whose division I think it is now, I guess by default, Buffalo. I'm not a huge fan. I'm not a huge fan of the quarterback, but we'll see. I do like the acquisition of the receiver that they made during the offseason. The defense is legit. I almost want to pick them to win the division kind of by default because, again, the Jets were not very good last year and they traded away their best player. The Dolphins, I think, are on the come. I think that's a team whose future looks very bright, but I don't think they're ready to win 10 games this year. So I think it comes down to the Patriots and the Bills, and I always give Bill the benefit of the doubt, but these not defections, that's the wrong word, but these opt-outs, whatever they're going to officially be called, I think have to be taken into consideration. So if you made me pick it right now, I think I would pick Buffalo to win the division.
Greeny, speaking of those Patriots, as you mentioned, we've seen a bunch of players opt out due to COVID. Other players from other teams have done so as well. Are you optimistic that if the NFL does have a season, they can limit these cases throughout the year and keep players safe?
Yeah, here's what I've said going back to the beginning of the pandemic. I'm going to be optimistic because it costs the same as being pessimistic, and it's a lot more fun. It's a lot more fun. So I'm going to remain optimistic, but I also promised my audience that I will also remain realistic. I'm not going to lie to them, and so I won't lie to you. You would be out of your mind not to be extraordinarily concerned about baseball or football's ability to pull this off. Hockey and basketball, by the nature of the sport and by nature of where they were in the calendar and a variety of other circumstances, got this thing right. They moved their activity into a bubble, and I think I'm almost certain as you can be of anything in the middle of a pandemic, that they're going to get this thing done, that we will have a basketball champion and we will have a hockey champion. And I would actually predict that they will be satisfying conclusions, that the virus will not decide the title.
Now, putting on your hat. Oh, go ahead, Greeny.
Well, I was going to say, with baseball and football, it's very hard to make that prediction. It's almost impossible to, with what has happened already in the baseball season, less than 1 week in. It's very difficult to picture with these people all living in their homes and living in their communities and traveling and everything else and playing these very, in the case of football, very physical games. It's very difficult to picture this not running rampant through the league. And then are they prepared to deal with that and still play a season to the conclusion? Again, I'll be hopeful, but I am also skeptical.
Yeah, some great points you bring up. Putting on your hat now of just being a sports fan, what's it been like for you personally watching these sports return, whether it's golf, baseball, some of those basketball scrimmages, soccer, without fans? Have you even really noticed it watching games?
No, I would say it's been glorious having the sports back. And you notice it every once in a while. You notice it in golf, when there's a great shot, someone makes a putt or whatever it is, and there's just this silence. But in some ways, I rather like it because there are a lot of dopes who go to golf events and love to yell and scream stupid, annoying things when guys hit the ball. So I love not having that. I just love having it back. I mean, the fans are part of the experience, but they are not the totality of it. So I will certainly take this over the alternative. And I will say that one of the things that I learned over the last few months, I don't know that I needed to be reminded of this, but I certainly was, is just how much I love this stuff and how much I'm dependent on it, not only for my professional considerations, but just personally. I love it. Like, I don't watch television shows. I don't binge watch shows. I didn't watch Tiger King, and I didn't watch any of these shows
Don't
that
waste your
everybody
time on it.
was watching. Yeah, I mean, I just couldn't be less interested. The only tiger I'm interested in is Woods, and the only king I'm interested in is LeBron. I like sports, and sports usually are more than enough to keep me entertained, pretty much 365 days of the year. So I've not had to depend on anything else. So I've sat and watched a little TV with my family. We've watched, you're going to laugh at me, but the show SVU, Law and Order SVU, and I've become a huge fan of that show. You've never seen SVU?
I have not.
It's very good.
It's one of the things like you. I always watch sports, so I've never gotten around to watching.
It's one of the Law and Order. It's a Law and Order spinoff with Mariska and Ice-T. It's very good. So we'll watch. Generally, most nights when we can, we will sit down to the four of us, which is great, and then we will sit down, the four of us, and watch one episode of that, which is an hour, and it's nice. And then they will all go on and want to find something else to do. So forward to the NBA returning towards the end of this week with games that matter, and it's starting to feel good again. And I just hope against hope that they're all able to go on.
And, of course, you mentioned the NBA. When the Rudy Gobert positive case came about, it shut literally everything down. Now, as we see the Marlins have over 17 people in the organization test positive, and unfortunately that number continues to rise, do you think the NFL is kind of watching that on pins and needles, remembering what happened when just Gobert tested positive back then? Or do you think that they're just kind of supremely confident in their own protocols going forward? I won't touch on the NBA or NHL because, again, they're different with their bubbles, but the NFL specifically watching the Marlins and the MLB.
Well, I think the NFL has the benefit of being able to learn from everybody else's mistakes. Trial and error is the only proven method of getting anything right in the history of human civilization. And when you're to do these things in the middle of a pandemic with all of these sports, it's almost anything anybody does, because we're all kind of flying by the seat of our pants. I think that the NFL gets the benefit of having seen what the NBA got wrong and right, what the NHL gets wrong and right, what Major League Baseball now is getting wrong and right, and others. So I think that they have that. That is a benefit for them. As I said before, I just don't know how you imagine a world in which the virus does not impact a sizable number of football players. And assuming that it does, they obviously have a plan in place. They have the benefit of all this time to put a plan in place, and they'll have to do it. And it may very well involve having like floating bye weeks. It could be that the Buccaneers are supposed to have, I'm just making this up, their bye week 6. But if they have a certain number of players test positive that week, then they're just going to push the bye week to another time and give the team a chance to, things like that. I'm not telling you that's what they are going to do. That's just one of the thoughts that came to my mind, that they're going to have plans, I think, for some flexibility. And I think certainly have plans in place for the possibility of everything getting pushed back. Like, the Super Bowl is scheduled for February, whatever day it's scheduled for. They, I would imagine, are going to be prepared to push that back a week or 2 weeks or a month or whatever it takes in order to accommodate whatever the circumstances are. And, again, they get the benefit of time to plan that stuff, and they get the benefit of learning from the problems that befall the other sports. So I give them the best chance because they get the opportunity to see how everyone else does.
Now, Greeny, all this talk, about COVID, it's been a little depressing. So we'll try to have a little lighter question for you. I know golf is your favorite sport. So my question for you is, if you could have your dream golf pairing, you and 3 other people of your choosing to play 18 holes with at any course, who would those 3 other people be, and what course would you want to play at?
Okay, so I love these. So there's a couple of questions. Are you talking about 3 golfers, or are you talking about any 3 people in history?
You can do both if you want. I was just thinking any 3 people in history that you want.
Well, I mean, is the answer Tiger Woods, Ben Hogan, and Jack Nicklaus, or is the answer John Lennon and
right.
people like that? See, I don't know that those people would be very interesting to play golf with. So I'd like to have a post-round beer with John Lennon. I'm allowed to include dead people, or do they all have to be alive?
Absolutely, whoever you want. Dead or alive.
So John Lennon would unquestionably be one of them. Such interesting questions. John Lennon, John Irving, and I don't know. I've got to think of a good 4th one. Some brilliant artist or poet or someone like that who would tell fascinating stories, like Salvador Dali or Pablo Picasso or someone like that. But golf, let's go to the easier one.
Yeah. Because
golf is a good one. So I would like to play with Tiger Woods, Jack Nicklaus, and Ben Hogan. And where would we play? So the best course, the highest rated course in the world that I've never played is Cyprus.
Right.
So, I would like to play Cyprus. If my favorite courses that I've ever played on is a 3-way tie, I can't choose between them, no matter how hard I try, because you could put them in any order and not be wrong, and that's Pine Valley. One round, just because I enjoy the travel piece of it, I would say Tiger Woods, Jack Nicklaus, and Ben Hogan, and we play at Royal County Down.
Okay, very nice. Before we let you go, we have 2 segments we like to do with all our guests to cap off each of our interviews. First is the Swift 7, which is 7 rapid fire, anything goes type questions. You just give us your answer in a few words or less, and then Joe will give you a trivia question at the end. So question number 1 for you, Greeny. What is your favorite sports venue that you've ever been to?
Augusta National.
Favorite location you've ever done a show from?
Well, that's a good question. I think when we did the show aboard the USS New York, we did Mike and Mike on board the USS New York. that was an extraordinary experience. We got a tour, not private, but a tour of the ship from the captain, and sort of witnessing what that ship was built with part of the steel in the hull came from the World Trade Center towers. It was built in the aftermath of September 11th, and being around the captain of that ship and all of the people serving on that ship, and the respect that they showed to the captain that we saw, and sort of I was never in the military, so getting that opportunity to see up close the way that worked, that was a day I'll never forget. There have been a few, but that was the first one that jumped to mind.
Very cool. Number 3, athlete you've never gotten to interview but would like to.
An athlete I've never interviewed. So I assume you mean someone who's still alive.
Yeah.
Meaning someone I still could interview.
Sure.
That's a really good question. I've been blessed. I've had the opportunity to interview most of the greats. Well, it's tough to say. I'm just thinking through the different sports and who I've never had a chance to interview. I mean, he's still alive. I've never had a chance to interview Willie Mays.
Okay.
And I would love to talk to him about, if he wanted to do it, to go back through the history. I've met, but I don't think I've ever actually interviewed Hank Aaron. I would love to interview Hank Aaron and talk at great length about his experiences when he was breaking Babe Ruth's home run records and so many other things. Those would be two that come to mind immediately. I'm sure I'll think of others, but those were the first two that jumped to mind.
And number 4, what is your favorite movie?
My favorite movie is Casablanca, which is Humphrey Bogart and Ingrid Bergman.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's the best movie ever made. I think it is absolute perfection. There are no number of times that I could watch that movie that I don't find myself completely riveted by it. And I will tell you that my wife and I, on our honeymoon, were in Casablanca. We went to Morocco for our honeymoon, and when I was boarding a little plane in Casablanca to fly from there to another city, Tangiers in Morocco, I started doing the famous speech that Humphrey Bogart does when he says, "You're getting on that plane, and if you don't, you'll regret it. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but soon, and for the rest of your life." And I thought I was being so clever, and I could tell the expressions on the faces of all of the flight attendants were all basically thinking the same thing, which is, here's another idiot American doing Humphrey Bogart. So I clearly wasn't the first person ever to do that.
Probably weren't the last either. Number 5, favorite New York Jet of all time.
That's so hard. I mean, I will have a place in my heart for Joe Namath forever. Joe Namath was like a deity in my home when I was growing up. I've many times said my mother would have left my father for Joe Namath, and my father would have applauded it. But I really didn't get to see Namath in his prime. I'm too young. I saw him at the very end of his career as a Jet, and I was just a little kid. So my favorite Jet of all time is Joe Klecko. And I think it is an absolute travesty
100%.
that he's not in the Hall of Fame. He belongs there. He clearly deserves it, in my opinion.
Question number 6. Jets Super Bowl victory, Northwestern national title in football, Northwestern national title in basketball. You could pick one of those to see happen. Which one do you pick?
I can't choose between the Northwestern ones. It would be one of those two for sure. I mean, I love the Jets, and I will always love the Jets. But Northwestern is my home, and those are my people. And, my daughter is there now. She isn't there this minute, but she's a student there now. I couldn't choose between the basketball or the football or the women. Was Northwestern. And as you may know, in the women's NCAA tournament, the first two games are played on the home court of the highest seeded team in the pod, and that would have been us. So we were a week away. I mean, my whole family was flying, and my daughter was already there, and my son and my wife and I were all flying to Evanston to go to those games. when the pandemic hit, and that was such a terrible shame. And they had such a great year, and they have really good players. Lindsey Pulliam is a terrific player, and Abby Scheid, who graduated now, and Abby Wolf, who graduated now. They were a really great team. So I couldn't choose between any of them. I would say that when Northwestern's men's basketball team made the tournament, we went out to Salt Lake City for the games. That was the most I've ever enjoyed a sporting event in my life, and being able to be there with my family was unbelievable. And we beat Vanderbilt in that first game. That I would say that was the one I enjoyed the most, but I couldn't choose between any of them. I'd give anything to see any of them happen.
Last one, you made it through the Swift 7. Favorite moment as a Jets fan?
Well, it's so hard to say. Like, going back to my, things just matter to you more when you're a kid than they do. So, I mean, I remember when the Jets, in 1981, the Jets needed to win their last game of the season against Green Bay to make the playoffs. And they had never made the playoffs in my conscious lifetime. The Jets had been terrible through the 70s. I was born in 1967. I clearly do not remember them winning the Super Bowl in January of 69. I was not even a year and a half old. So I had never seen the Jets play in the playoffs. And my dad and I went to the game, Shea Stadium. They were playing the Packers, and it was the famous one more sack game where and that was the sack exchange. That was Klecko and Gastineau and Salam and Lyons. Their pass rush was so good. And the fans, we were all chanting, one more sack, one more sack. And I'm doing this off the top of my head, but I think we sacked Lynn Dickey 11 times in that game. And Johnny Lamb Jones had a big day, and the Jets won that game and made the playoffs for the first time in my lifetime. And we went on the next weekend and we lost to Buffalo at home, 31-27, in a game that we gave up a touchdown on the opening kickoff and we were receiving. And then we were way behind, and then Todd brought him back and threw an interception at the very end when they had a chance to win. So that everything just seemed to matter more when I was a kid. But I've really enjoyed it now with my son having developed a similar sort of passion for the Jets. I've enjoyed that. And so, being able to watch some of the good Jet games with him under Rex, some of the playoff wins was really fun. But if I had to pick the one, I think it was that day when the Jets made the playoffs for the first time in my life.
Not a bad one to pick at all. Going to channel my inner Hembo here for your Greeny, like we did last week when we had Dan Orlovsky on the show. And I heard your appearance on the Michael K. Show's Last One Standing. So you're in prime trivia mode right now. The question to wallow in our self-pity of our Jets fandom just a little bit more. The franchise has only had 8 players make the Pro Bowl since 2015. Can you name 5 of them? And here's the depressing hint. None of them are on the team anymore. So 8 Pro Bowlers since 2015. We want you to name 5 of them. And as we do for all our guests, it's a 90-second clock that PJ will start once you're ready. And 3 strikes, you're out.
All right. Jamal Adams.
That's the easy one.
Leonard Williams.
That's 2.
None of them are on the team anymore. Thinking through the defense. 2015. So that would be well after Beavis was there. Have we had anyone else in the defensive secondary? I'm going to say no.
30 seconds, Greeny. You got a minute left. Plenty of time.
Okay. So on the offensive side, any offensive linemen? I mean, would that be too late for the DeBrickashaw Fergusons of the world? Was Mangold already gone by then?
Mangold is one of them.
Mangold is one. Okay, so that's kind of hard to. 2015 is it's kind of a middle ground there. That would have been the beginning of Bowles. So that would have been the good year that we had with Bowles, or he should have made the playoffs with Fitzpatrick at quarterback. So Eric Decker wouldn't have made the playoffs. But who was the other receiver that year? The Jets had another receiver who had a big year. Why am I blanking on who it was?
You still got all your strikes, 20 seconds. You need to get 2 more.
Yeah, I'm blanking on who that was. Boy, my mind is my memory is not what it used to be. It wouldn't have been any of the quarterbacks. It certainly wouldn't have been any of the quarterbacks. Maybe the defensive player. There's got to be someone very obvious I'm forgetting that's going to bother me a lot. But I don't have it. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Give it to me. Yeah, give it to me. So who was the other receiver the year that they had Decker?
The other receiver was Brandon Marshall. You had it right there.
Oh, right. Yeah, that's it. So, I lost you there for a second. Give me again. You broke up. It was Mo Wilkerson, Durrell. The ones I didn't say were Wilkerson, Revis, Brandon Marshall. Who else?
Chris Ivory, and then the kicker, Jason Myers, snuck in there in 2018.
Okay, so I would never have gotten that. I would never have gotten Ivory either, although he did have a great year. Yeah, I mean, look, and not one of them is on the team anymore. It just sucked. I mean, rooting for the Jets just, if you'll excuse my language, and I know this isn't by most people's standards really bad language, but rooting for the Jets sucks. There's really no other way. For the last decade and beyond, it has been just so frustrating and just not a lot of fun.
Yeah, Greeny, we can't thank you enough for taking all this time. Me personally, this was really nice. I don't mean to date you or make you feel old, but from kindergarten through senior year of high school, driving to school in the mornings every day, Mike and Mike every single morning on the radio. So this was a thrill and a pleasure, and thank you again for taking the time, and we hope you stay healthy and safe with your family going forward.
Well, the same to you. Thank you for the kind words, and best of luck, fellas. I enjoyed it.
Thank you, Greeny. Appreciate it. Stay safe. Can't thank Mike Greenberg enough, our amazing guest who you can see every morning on Get Up. You probably heard him on Mike and Mike in the Morning. He's got his new radio show, The Mike Greenberg Show, coming up. Nice of him to spend some time with us. We only thought we'd get about 20, 25 minutes out of him. Got about close to 30. So that was awesome. Gave us a lot of great information. I thought it was interesting, the golf pairings, when I asked him that question when he went the John Lennon route, and he said like Salvador Dali and
yeah, he was right.
Picasso.
You could take that a lot of ways, that question. And he had a very interesting eclectic group for the people who have passed, and that some of those guys. But the golfer route, I mean, you can't get a better. You'd be hard pressed to find a better.
He heard that question and he's like, "Oh, I love this stuff."
Immediately, Tiger Woods, Ben Hogan, and
Jack Nicklaus. Yep, that was great. But I mean, as a Jets fan, getting his insight on Jamal Adams was great. Also, I love how he gave us the stuff too about how he's really close with Marcus Spears, Booger McFarland, Ryan Clark, all LSU guys, where Jamal Adams played his college ball, so they know him really well. But I agree with everything he said that we've talked about off the podcast. We thought the Jets got great value. Both sides really, I think, did well. The Seahawks rarely ever use their first-round picks, so to them it's like, to give up a couple for Adams, we don't really see it as much of a bad bet for us. Earl Thomas was their guy.
Yeah.
They needed a safety, and they feel like they've got their safety of the future.
This year was the first year in a little bit where they actually made their first-round selection. They always trade back. So Schneider had to be sitting there in his GM office in Seattle saying to himself, all right, do I want to do what I usually do and just trade back and pick up a couple of, second-rounders that I hope become stars? Or do I just give them both up for Jamal Adams, who's a bona fide perennial all-pro, future Hall of Famer if he's healthy? Not even in his prime yet. He's still only 25 years old. He's still very young. So that doesn't happen often, like a guy like that coming available. So it was a no-brainer for Seattle. Yes, they gave up a lot, but you have to think about where they're coming from, that they don't usually make their first-round picks anyway. You have to think about the fact that they are ready to win a Super Bowl now. You have to think about the fact that Pete Carroll and his defenses, they love the safeties. Earl Thomas, Cam Chancellor, they've got their own little Legion of Boom brewing again with Jamal Adams as the perfect guy to make it go. Kind of your hybrid between a Chancellor and an Earl Thomas. You have that now in one hybrid player.
Yeah.
It made sense for the Seahawks. It made sense for Jamal Adams. He goes somewhere where he can win immediately. He's not really going to get the attention that he got in New York, or that he would have gotten if he wanted to go to his hand-picked destination of Dallas. But Seattle was on his list of teams that he wanted to trade to. So he wins in that aspect. And the Jets win. The Jets weren't close to winning. They're still a year or two away from being legitimate division contenders, and then beyond that, title contenders. Joe Douglas has a plan. You as a Ravens fan, he comes from your background. He cut his teeth in that franchise and with the Eagles. When the Jets hired him, people around the league, the Jets are always kind of the stepchild that gets picked on by people around the league and in the media. But the media, executives around the league, they were all unanimous. Couldn't believe Joe Douglas, that they landed Joe Douglas. Thrilled for Joe Douglas. Beautiful pairing. Douglas is the next great GM mind. And he's shown it so far. On paper, he had one great draft and a really, really good free agent class. So he's already 2 for 2 in that aspect. Again, he has to prove it going forward, but now he has the ammunition to do that. He has 2 first-round picks this coming season, 2 first-round picks in 2022. Getting rid of Adams, that would have been $18 million of cap space they would have had to give him. That is now free. Le'Veon Bell's probably going to get cut after this season. They have an out in his contract. So they have all that money from Bell, all the money they're saving from Adams. They're going to be near the top of the league in cap space, in addition to having 4 first-round picks in the next 2 years, plus the young nucleus that he's already starting to build with Darnold, got the left tackle Mekhi Becton, you got Denzel Mims at receiver. They have talent that he's slowly putting together. Perfect trade all around for all parties. I personally would have given Adams the money if he weren't a headache. People were saying, oh, he's just a safety. Safeties aren't that valuable. I wouldn't pay that safety $18 million. The statistics and the eye test show that he's much more than a safety. He's a pass rusher, he's a middle linebacker, and he's a safety.
Oh, he's a stud.
It's gonna take a pass rusher, C.J. Mosley, and McDougal, who they got in the trade from Seattle, to replace him. And anytime it takes 3 guys to fill the shoes of one player, that's a pretty damn important player. So if he weren't a headache, I would have been fine giving him the $18 million.
Right.
And look, teams find the money, they figure it out. Look at the Chiefs were literally $177, not $1 million, $177, 3 PlayStation games under the salary cap. And then they gave Mahomes the deal and the defensive end the deal. They gave those deals when they were just barely $200 under the cap. You turn base salaries into signing bonuses and this and that. You make the cap number come down. So they would have figured out a way when Adams' money kicked in. Presumably, it would have been a deal like Mahomes, where the extension didn't kick in until the end of the rookie deal. So they wouldn't have had to worry about it for 2 more years. And then when they did have to worry about it, they could have tried to find a way to get rid of C.J. Mosley's money, Jamison Crowder's money, Le'Veon Bell's money. There would have been things to do. Yes, they're going to have to pay Sam Darnold coming up, probably, unless that goes totally south. I don't think it will. I think they're going to pay him very soon. And they're eventually going to have to keep an eye towards paying Mekhi Becton as a left tackle. He has to prove it. They just drafted him now. But you start to think about these things, guys who are in very valuable positions who are going to, in the next couple of years, need to get paid. Quinnen Williams, if he shows out like an Aaron Donald, going to want to get paid. So you have those in the back of your mind, and maybe that's why a lot of people said, I don't want to commit $18 million to Adams. But if he weren't a headache, you commit the money to him, and you figure everything else out afterwards. Everything is fleeting in the NFL. When you have a guy who's a Hall of Famer, who's an all-pro in your roster, in your building, you don't get rid of him. That is not good team building. But again, with the haul they got back from Seattle, with the fact that Jamal turned into a total diva, headache, perfect deal all around. Had to get rid of him, perfect deal.
The Jets know, too, I think, that for the first time in 20 years, they feel like they could win the AFC East. I mean, you always –
maybe not this year, but like the following year, yeah.
Sure. I mean, you always go into a season hoping that you can win the division. But realistically, the Bills, Dolphins, and Jets knew that it would be a tough hill to climb to beat New England. Now with Brady gone, with all these players sitting out for the Patriots, they're on the decline a little bit, although you never want to count them out with Belichick. They definitely feel like, look, maybe the Bills are in win mode right now. The Dolphins are definitely
building
and coming up. And the Jets, I think, feel that they're that same way. They got all that draft.
The Bills
you talked about.
The Bills are a win now team. The Dolphins are a 4 years out team. The Patriots are in teardown mode.
Yeah.
The Jets could kind of, looking at the rest of the division, again, Dolphins 4 years away, Bills win now, Patriots coming down. The Jets are a year or 2 away.
Yeah.
So there's an alleyway in there for them if they make the right picks and the right signings with Joe Douglas, where the division could be theirs in a year or 2. So that's something to look to. And really, something that you have to keep an eye on now is if the Jets go out and get Jadeveon Clowney, because then that takes this deal to the next level. Because by trading Adams to Seattle, knowing Seattle's going to have to commit money to Adams, they can't get Clowney anymore. Made him free.
They can get that.
He already tweeted a screenshot on FaceTime with Jadeveon in which he said to the Jets, "Come get me." So if out of all this, the Jets were able to come out of it with McDougal, Adams, 2 first-round picks, and the ability to sign Clowney because the Seahawks don't have the money, then it takes it to the next level for Joe Douglas.
That's true. Well, that was great getting Greeny's insight on that. We talked about golf being his favorite sport. It's time for us to preview the WGC, the World Golf Championship, down in Memphis this week, the St. Jude Classic. Joe, you were close last week in Minnesota. Tony Finau, as it seems like he is almost most of the weeks, was right there in contention. Couldn't get the win. Let's not even talk about my picks. We'll go right into Memphis, though, this week. Stacked field. All the stars are playing virtually except for Tiger. So, Joe, who do you like this week in Memphis?
Well, first of all, my pick last week officially ended up being Wolf, who came in 12th. So 2 picks.
Oh, was it? I thought you were Finau.
No, I ended up I was talking Wolf and Finau, but I sided with Wolf because of the better value. So I had a good week last week in that both of my picks were right there. But again, still no winner. This week, I actually should have gone with Finau, though, in the end. Obviously, he came in 3rd. Wolf was in 12th, though Wolf did have the lead at one point. I don't know if Finau – did Finau ever have the lead at one point?
I think he did. Maybe tied for the lead, yeah.
Hey, but the winner in Thompson, first real long shot since we've gotten back on tour, 100-1 before the tournament started.
In 7 years. So if you had that one, hand clap for you. Well done.
Yep. So this week, my pick is Webb Simpson. As we've started doing these picks more and more, and I've started to kind of get – even more into the specifics than I was even before we started the podcast regarding golf, I came across something that it talked about how great Webb Simpson is on Bermuda putting greens. And he has 2 wins since the tour came back, both on Bermuda putting greens, and that's what we have here. And he came in 2nd here last year. So a lot going his way. Playing well, his surface that he likes, loves the course, 2nd place here last year. It's got good value as well. I'm just trying to find the updated line on him. 22-1. 22-1 the odds. I checked yesterday. It was 18-1. So even better now at 22-1. That puts him at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8th best odds at 22-1. Good value. I go with Webb Simpson.
Joe, I'm tearing up over here. I'm blown away by the Bermuda putting stat. I mean, that was well done. Next level. Love Webb this week as well. I think he'll be right in for contention. I fill out my DraftKings lineup every week. I love doing that. Last week, John Rahm or 2 weeks ago when he won the Memorial, the highest guy that you could get was like DeChambeau, McIlroy. They were like 11,700. Rahm was 9,200. I mean, he was down there, and that was great value. This week, 2 weeks later after he won and became number 1 in the world, he's the favorite, and he's 11,400. So he jumped all the way up. The guy that has great value this week, who I think is going to play well and win the thing, is Abraham Answer. Most probably haven't heard of him if you don't follow the game of golf. But if you take out the last 2 weeks, he didn't play last week in Minnesota, but the Memorial. Before that, 3 straight events, he was top 15. So he was playing well. He's a good putter, good ball striker. And with again, a big field, he'll get lost in the shuffle. People won't talk about him. And no cut this week, too, at a WGC. Guys are playing 4 rounds every week, so you look for somebody that'll be consistent, make birdies, will avoid the big numbers, and will have a good day each of their 4 days. And that's why I think Webb's a great pick, and I like Answer as well. So we'll see what happens. It should be a lot of fun. And, Joe, if you can believe it, next week is our first major of the year, baby.
So excited for it. I thought about a guy like Koepka this week, but knowing that the PGA is next week, I think some of those guys are going to kind of keep something in their reserve tanks, especially Koepka, that his knee isn't 100%.
Yeah.
I think this week, I genuinely don't think he's going into this week with the intention of winning. I think he wants to work out some of the kinks in his game, figure out what's going to help his knee out, and make sure he's 100% for the PGA. So that's what kind of scared me away from a guy like that this week. But go with Webb Simpson.
No Tiger this week. He's resting for next week as well. And Koepka should be a favorite as he does well in the majors every year, it seems like, for the past couple of years. We've talked football, Joe. We've talked golf. We've talked baseball. Now it's time for a little NBA and hockey. So we record this on Wednesday. The NBA returns on tomorrow,
Thursday.
right? Thursday, yeah. And then
tonight, technically, when you're listening to
right,
this.
when the episode drops. And then the NHL starts Saturday?
Saturday. Scrimmages are going on now. I love the look of the arena. It's very.
I do too. I love the Stanley Cup in the center circle.
Oh yeah, yep. They did a really good thing in as far as closing off the seats and making it kind of just compact, so it's not this big cavernous arena that's empty and echoing. It's tighter. Watching the broadcast yesterday of the Flyers Penguins, you could hear the skates, the stick blades, the players. It was great. It almost kind of gave me a vibe of a Winter Classic, where when you watch a Winter Classic, because you're on a whether it's a baseball field, football field, when you're seeing the shots of the game, there's no fans along the glass. They're all in the distance in the stands. So it reminded me a lot of watching a Winter Classic game. Now, there's, of course, no cutaway shots to fans or aerial shots where you can see the fans. But it reminded me a lot of watching that, where they have extra mics in the glass, on the ice. You can't see the fans around the glass anyway. I don't know if you've taken a look at
I watched a little bit, yeah.
But it really gave me the vibes of a Winter Classic game. They had the spider cam, too, as well, hovering above the ice to give you an alternative angle. So they really did a good job.
I can't wait for the schedule. It'll be like March Madness with games all day, one after the next. It's going to be unbelievable, morning to night. So, look, we've already previewed both leagues, really. Next week, it'll be nice to talk about them, to see what teams are doing. But for right now, I'll give everybody just an NBA bet from the opening couple games. You'll give everybody a hockey bet. My NBA bet, again, I probably wouldn't bet the first couple days of the NBA, especially the regular season, waiting to see what teams look like. You don't know who's going to be playing, who won't be playing. But I do like Utah on opening night tomorrow or today on Thursday when the game starts. Jazz are plus 2.5 against New Orleans. I think Zion's such a big public draw, and because of him, because people might still be torn up on the Rudy Gobert, Donovan Mitchell situation, thinking that there's a rift between those two. I like Utah. I think I'd take them on the money line outright to pull the upset, if you will, over the Pelicans, but definitely plus 2.5 to win the game.
I don't want to pick hockey games yet, just because same thing for you, and not sure yet. And the NBA is still different than hockey, where for the NBA, some teams are still going to ease into it a little bit. Not everybody's competing for a playoff spot. In hockey, it is the playoffs. So I'm not sure what the intensity is going to be like. We know that playoff hockey is fluky anyway. So instead of looking at a game, I turned my attention to a series, betting on the outcome of one of the first 5-game series. Now, I'm very tempted to take the Rangers at plus 112, but I'm not going to be that much of a homer and do that. So I look to another Eastern Conference series. It's something that we talked about a few weeks ago in our preview, the Panthers and the Islanders. The Islanders, I think, are really well constructed as a playoff team defensively and with Barry Trotz at the helm. The Panthers, another team with a championship pedigree coach in Joel Quenneville, but they don't have the team that the Islanders have. They were in sell mode at the deadline. They were ready to punt on the season. Lo and behold, they make the playoffs because of the expanded field. Mm-hmm. So I was a little bit surprised at how tight the odds are on this one. The Panthers are even money. The Islanders are only minus 120. So I think that's really good value on the Islanders to win that first series. Again, I know starting next week, I'll give you a game pick in this segment.
Right.
But for now, I like the idea of a series pick in the Islanders. I think I honestly think they can sweep the Panthers. So if you could find anywhere that gives you odds on like the correct series score, actually, I just looked it up. The Islanders are plus 550 to get the sweep. I would even think about sprinkling that on there. I think the Panthers are among the teams that really just consider themselves lucky to be here. And knowing that the draft lottery was won by a placeholder and the loser of these series will have a 12.5% chance at the number 1 pick. Don't underestimate that with the Panthers, a team that was looking to just punt on the season and start retooling. Lucky to be here, have a chance at the number 1 pick. Islanders knew they were going to be here, want to compete in the postseason. Give me the Islanders on minus 120 for the series, and maybe you think about sprinkling a 3-0 series sweep at plus 550.
I like it. I like it. So again, we'll see what happens. Great to have those sports back. And the tests for those two sports, nobody has tested positive in the latest rounds of.
And I'm very confident in both of those, especially hockey, because they got the hell out of the U.S. to Canada, where the cases are a lot lower than the U.S. So not only are they in a bubble, but they're in a Canadian bubble where there aren't many cases around them.
So hopefully they can continue that. Usually right now, before we do trivia, we do Where Would You Go, Joe? But, Joe, you know what? I looked at this week, and I'm like, there's seriously nothing that happened on July 30th. So, you know what? We're going to have some fun this week. There was something going around Twitter. John Butchergross, an anchor for ESPN, who's awesome. He watched all 22 Pixar movies, okay?
In order.
Release. In release, and he gave his rankings 22 all the way to 1 of what he thought the best movies were.
So and the first thing I want to agree with him on is the fact that he made it a point that from 1 to 21, they're all great films. The only absolute dud at number 22 is Cars 2, and he's totally right. Pixar don't miss. Pixar does not miss.
Well, that's what I was going to say is, I was making my list of a top 5, which we'll give everybody our top 5 Pixar list. And I'm like, I mean, I could literally make a case for like 11 movies to be in the top 5. So do you want me to go 5 to 1?
Let's go 5 to 1.
5 to 1. Okay.
I'm giving you fair warning. I cheat on this list, but we're going 5 to 1.
Okay. All right. Do you want me to give 5 and then you'll give 5, or you just want me to give?
Let's go 1 each. You give 5, I give 5, all the way down to 1.
My number 5, again, tough to give it, but I'm going to go with Onward. Have you seen Onward yet?
Yes.
Fantastic.
That's actually my number 5 too.
Is it really? Joe, I was blown away. I'm like, you know what? I really I don't want to watch this movie. I've heard good things, but what? Fantastic.
I was
Anybody
excited
who haven't
for
seen it, highly recommend.
I was excited for it, and I went to go see it 3 days before the shutdown happened. I was down here alone in Florida back when I first came here to start working. Friday night, nothing to do, don't know anybody down here yet. Things weren't really closed down. I hopped on the AMC app. I saw that the theater was pretty much empty. It was like a 10 o'clock movie. So I wasn't afraid of being around people because I could see that the seats were all empty. It was me, and there were like 3 other adults in there who were like sitting far away from me. And it was great. Like, I loved it. I watched it again during quarantine with my girlfriend when it popped on Disney Plus because she hadn't seen it. Loved it more the second time. Noticed more that I didn't notice the first time. Great movie.
Great movie.
And I think it's going to get lost in the shuffle because it didn't really have the big theatrical release and success as the others because a pandemic forced theaters to shut down. But it was great.
I agree with you. Excellent. Chris Pratt and Tom Holland are the stars in that one. Great movie. 3 and 4 were a toss-up. It was tough, but number 4, this is going to be a stunner to you, but I have to go with Toy Story 1. And again, Toy Story is one of my favorite franchises ever, probably is my favorite. Toy Story 1, there's not a single person who's seen it who doesn't like it. I mean, Tom Hanks, Tim Allen, what more do you need to say? Fantastic movie, but again, the top 3 is just so strong, and I don't think Toy Story 1 is the best of the Toy Stories, so I had to put it at number 4.
It's not. So for me, number 4, I go with Ratatouille. Love Ratatouille. It's a really good movie, underrated. Patton Oswalt is tremendous in that movie. I don't know really what it is about it versus some of the other Pixar movies that are good. Again, they're all great, but I just really found myself as a kid like drawn to this movie. I don't know if it was the food, if it was the rats. I don't know what it was, but I really love it. That's really the whole movie right there, food and rats. You can get those both, but I really enjoyed it. The whole concept of a rat controlling a person to cook. I really enjoyed that movie. That's number 4 for me.
And then it turns it into such a good movie.
Pixar's incredible.
They are incredible. Number 3, Joe. So again, I told you Toy Story and this movie were tough, but I'm going Coco number 3. Coco is the last 40 minutes of that movie are sensational. It takes a little bit to develop the plot. They got to give you the backstory and everything and how it's going to tie all together. But man, when they tie that thing together, it is like a beautiful goddamn rap present. And the music is excellent. Just absolutely loved it. If anybody has not seen Coco, do yourself a favor and go see Coco.
So for me, for 3, I have Up. Love Up. Incredible movie. Really pulls at the heartstrings right out of the gates, and then it's just really fun all around. Again, just Pixar's concepts, like
so good.
balloons tied to a house travels. It's incredible.
Right. And you say, that is my number 2.
Okay.
The best opening scene of any children's movie not named Lion King is Up.
Okay.
I mean, those first 10 minutes with him and his wife, Ellie, and it's just how it ties together. You want to talk about, too, about when you're naming a movie and how many different ways they could have named that movie, but to just simply make it Up.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah. Brilliant.
It's a great movie. What's your number 2?
Number 2 for me is Inside Out. Perfect movie. Incredible. It was actually number 2 for Buccigross as well.
Yeah.
I mean, just the whole concept of like diving into someone's emotions and the whole adventure they had in this girl's head, Riley, as she was moving and navigating a tough time in her life. Beautiful movie. Loved it. I really had a tough time as far as, you mentioned it before, I meant to mention it before as well, not putting Coco in my top 5 because Coco's a great movie. I think it has to do with the fact that of these, I've only seen it once. I still haven't gotten a chance to watch it a second time. So I think after I watch it again a time or two, that's the one where I put a label on it, like reserve the right to rise on this list. And I think it really will once I see it again. But it's just so tough to crack the top 5. But as of right now, before we reveal our number 1s, if I had to guess, I'd say of the ones that didn't crack my top 5, Coco, after watching it a time or two, I think has a decent chance at supplanting 5 and 4 for me. I think it's got a chance to come up to 3.
And Inside Out just missed my cut. Again, kind of like you with Coco, I've only seen it once, and it was a couple of years ago. I'm sure I remember liking it a lot, but I'm sure if I saw it again, I'd really enjoy it.
Yeah. Like Onward might have been a recency bias for me because I saw it twice in the last couple months, and I loved it, so that's 5.
There you go.
And Ratatouille, I remember liking it a lot as a kid, and still whenever it's on, I put it on. I'm excited. I know at Epcot they're coming up with a Ratatouille ride, so I'm curious to see how that goes. But like I said, I think after I watch Coco a couple more times, it's probably going to push Onward and Ratatouille back a spot each.
So good. So Inside Out just missed the cut for me. Finding Nemo just missed the cut, and Cars as well. I agree. Cars 2 probably towards the back end is one of the worst, but original Cars I love. My number 1, Joe, we might have the same number 1 for me.
I guarantee you we don't have the same number 1.
For me, my number 1 is Toy Story 3.
Okay.
And I just look for a movie, for the best movie of the series not to be number 1 is pretty impressive. For it to be the third one is even more impressive. I just remember seeing that movie for the first time, walking out of that theater and being like, that was the best Toy Story they've ever made. Yeah. And if it's the best Toy Story, then it's got to be number 1 on my list. And that's
I told you I cheated on the list. Okay. And the way I cheated is that my number 1 is just Toy Story franchise, 1, 2, 3, and 4 all time.
I mean, that's fair.
That's my favorite movie franchise.
What's your favorite movie of the 4?
I was going to get to that. I think all 4 of those are head and shoulders above, and this is just a testament to how great Toy Story is. All 4 of those are head and shoulders above the rest of Pixar's home runs. Toy Story 1 revolutionized animation. Toy Story 2 built on that. 3 and 4 were just incredible movies on their own. So I would have felt like an idiot making my list those 4 and then something at 5. So I decided to go with tied for 1, all 4 of them. Of the 4, my favorite is also Toy Story 3. Incredible movie. The whole passing of the torch thing with passing on the toys. I mean, you mean to tell me that if you were in that theater when I was in 5th grade.
Not crying.
Not like ready. Exactly. When you think the toys are about to be incinerated and then the aliens come in with the claw. That's incredible. Incredible movie.
And then when Andy goes to Bonnie's to play with them for the last time.
Oh my God, I still cry at that part now after like having gone away to college and stuff. Like,
we talk about how good the movie is too. I mean, You Got a Friend in Me. It does not get any better than that.
And I think a friend of the pod, Ryan Wormley, he wasn't as high on Toy Story 4, and we had this discussion. I loved Toy Story 4. Forky was a really fun character. I, again, liked the whole kind of adventure of it. The ending of that one also, if that doesn't make you shed a tear, but the whole, the way Buzz and Woody said goodbye, I mean, come on, like, you're not human if it doesn't. I saw that twice in theaters, admittedly cried both times. I think, again, Buccigross said the same thing in his Twitter thread. He's a movie crier. I'm also a movie crier. Dan Orlovsky said that last week in our interview with him as well, that he's a movie crier. I'm the same way. And both of those, every time, end of Toy Story 3, end of Toy Story 4. From top to bottom, I go 3, 1. I'm sorry, yeah, 3, 1, 4, 2. And again, not big gaps. I think 2 is the weakest of the movies.
I go 3, 1, 2, 4. I think 4 is the worst of the bunch. Still a great movie, but to Toy Story standards, I think just because
3 and 1 though are definitely the 2 best.
I'm totally with you on that. All right, Joe, it's that time for trivia. And we gave Mike Greenberg a Jets question, hitting home with him. So I believe you have a Ravens question for me, and then I got a Jets question for you.
I do. I do have a Ravens question for you. I will ask you the question first this week because
sounds good.
Asked it to me first last week. So they had tremendous success last year on the first team All-Pro. They had five first-team All-Pros last year. They had tremendous success from 2000 to 2010 with guys like Ed Reed, Jonathan Ogden, Ray Lewis, plenty of success. But there was a little bit of a dead zone, a little bit, from 2010 to 2015, okay? 8 guys only. I say only, like other teams, that's still pretty good. But by the Ravens standards for the decade preceding and after it, 8 guys were first-team All-Pro in that kind of dead zone for them from 2010 to 2015. Give me 5 of them, and let me get the clock set for you. From 2010 to 2015, 8 first-team All-Pro players. Some had multiple, so more than one first-team All-Pro honoree, but only 8 total players. Just give me 5 of them. Your time starts now.
Well, the 2 locks are Suggs and Yonda.
Yes.
Ray Rice.
Ray Rice did not.
Okay. 2010 to 2015.
Yep.
Ed Reed?
Ed Reed snuck in there. 2010 was his last one.
Okay,
so there's 3 for you.
Good. Yeah. I mean, Ray Lewis was drafted in 96, so that was year 14 was 2010. Let's see. All-Pro. I mean, their best receiver was Bolden, but I don't think it was him. Oh, Haloti Ngata.
You said Nada and Suggs already?
I did not say that. I said Yonda.
Oh, well, Nada too. There's 4.
That's funny. And you know what? I think I got this with the 5th. Vontae Leach.
Vontae Leach is right.
Boom.
Good job, PJ.
Was Ray Lewis on there?
Ray Lewis was not. His last was 2009. Good. So the rest of the guys. You want to keep going? Keep going. I mean,
the last 3 guys. I mean, was it Sam Cook, the punter?
Was not. No.
Morgan Cox, the lawn snapper.
Nope.
No. Okay. All right. Yeah. Who were the other 3?
The last couple were Justin Tucker.
It was Tucker. Okay.
Justin Tucker made it. Another kicker, less famed, more hated, Billy Cundiff.
Oh, Cundiff.
2010. Okay. Billy Cundiff in 2010.
Nice.
And then Jacoby Jones in 2012.
As a kick returner.
As a kick returner. Those are the other 3.
Great question at 5 because I would have had to either gotten Cundiff, Leach, Tucker, or Jones. It was the 5 I would.
Exactly. That's why I made 5 the cutoff because I figured the 4 were kind of slam dunks, but even among that, Reed was a question mark because of the year. That 2010 was his last one. And then I just wanted you to pretty much get one of the obscure guys. And you got it. So there you go. 3 out of 10. You're a 300 hitter. MLB hitters, bat 300. You're in the Hall of Fame for a career.
There we go.
Very good.
Yeah, that was a good question, Joe. I enjoyed that one. So I'll give you a Jets question, and I think you'll like it. Kind of the same thing, player-oriented. We're looking at 2010 to 2016, okay? That is Mark Sanchez and Ryan Fitzpatrick were really the quarterbacks for the Jets. There were 4 other guys that started a game for New York during that time period from 2010 to 2016. Can you name those other 4 guys?
Okay.
Time starts now.
Kellen Clemens.
Not Kellen Clemens. He was 2009, right before.
Oh, yeah. He started the Buccaneers game when Sanchez hurt his knee. 10 to 16.
Yep.
Okay. Greg McElroy.
1.
Sims started a game. I know that, up in Buffalo.
Sims?
Yeah, Sims is on that list, right?
He is not.
Might have to have a challenge on that one. I know he started a game. To 2016, you said, right?
Strikes. Yes.
Okay. All right, so Fitzy, Sanchez.
I mean, you're missing a big one. This guy.
Geno Smith.
There you go. There's two.
Yeah.
So you need two more from 2010 to 2016.
And we're still pausing on Sims there. I know he started a game, unless I have the year wrong, but I'm positive he started a game in Buffalo that was just atrocious. I don't see Tebow's a tricky one because they might have run his package to start a game, and it technically gave him the start.
I'll tell you, Tebow is not on there.
Okay, because that might have been a tricky one there.
You got 20 seconds left. You need two quarterbacks.
Okay. 2010, 2016. That would have been before Bryce Petty. God.
5 seconds.
Yeah, that's it.
Bryce Petty was one of them.
He was one of them. Damn it.
2016, he started. And then the other one you're missing was Mike Vick. Started 3 games in 2014.
Yeah.
Good old
I'm
Mike
telling
Vick.
you, hold on. I got to look this up real quick. I'm positive Sims.
So 2010, so Clemens got one start in 2009, him and Sanchez. Then 2010, 2011, Sanchez started all 16. 2012, Sanchez started 15. Okay. McElroy got his one start. Then in 2013, Geno started all 16. 2014, Geno started 13. Vick started 3. 2015, Fitzpatrick started all 16. And then 2016, Fitzpatrick started 11. Petty got 4. Smith got 1.
You got me. Sims came in early in relief of Vick in a game that Vick got hurt. So I felt like he started, but he did not start. So there you go. I should have, you know what? Pulling back the curtain.
I would not. The Steelers Mike Vick, I remember. Yeah. Jets Mike Vick would have gone over my head.
Pulling back the curtain, he gave me a question that I thought was ridiculously hard, and I got it right. And then I made you give me this one instead, and I got it wrong. So that just goes to show you should just go with it. I know.
I tried to help you out.
I know. We're gonna. You know how if you
2.5 is it?
If you turn on Around the Horn, some people on Around the Horn do have half wins. I'm gonna give myself a half victory on this.
Sounds good.
I'm making the executive decision to say that through.
Average.
I'm batting 250. You're batting 300.
The question that I originally gave you that we went to this one was the team that the Jets have never beaten in their franchise history, which is kind of incredible. They've never
beaten them.
Is the Philadelphia Eagles.
And I got it. I would have gotten it at the buzzer.
You had 2 strikes too. You originally guessed the Packers and the Niners, and then you got Philly right at the buzzer.
Right at the buzzer.
They're 0-11 against Philadelphia.
I said I thought it was too hard, and that we were trying to give each other like player-oriented questions this week. So find me a player-oriented one. But let's do it for fun, and I got it right. So 2.5, you have 3. So next week, for the first time, you have an official lead, and it'll be up to you if I ask or get the question first. So
there you go.
Have a half-win lead. I'm curious to see now, as we go forward with this, if I'll be able to get back to a whole number, or if I'm going to be stuck on a half number for a while.
Great. You almost need a pandemic to get you back to get rid of the half games like they are in the NBA. You know, everybody's just at a fair slate now.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens. Joe, I'm rocking my O's gear today because they play the Yankees today and tomorrow, and they will not have a winning record after those 2 games.
Wait, do you hear that? Glaber just hit another.
Yeah, I'm sure he did. He left the yard. So that'll be enjoyable. I don't even know who the hell we got starting on the mound today. It doesn't even matter. But that was a lot of fun. Mike Greenberg, I mean, it doesn't get much bigger than that, Joe. So
Mike Greenberg, sports Pixar movies, number 10 podcast. There we go.
What do you want? If you can't enjoy this podcast, then you just don't enjoy fun. I don't know.
You don't have a soul. You're not a human being. I don't know what to tell you.
We just unleashed everything here for episode 10 for you. We got NBA, NHL coming back. God, let's hope that baseball continues and that these Marlins can recover and that nobody else reverts to that level of stupidity.
And finally,
next week, COVID tests, sit out.
And next week, we finally have more than just baseball to talk about.
That is correct. We will. God, thank God. And, we've been joking the last couple episodes. You start a sports podcast without sports, and now sports are finally coming back. Joe, as always, it was great talking to you. And thanks to Mike Greenberg for joining us. We will see you next time for episode 11.